the plant-based speech you need to hear. So by the end of this video, you're going to hear a very compelling speech. I'm going to do a short reaction video to a speech that's very compelling about how a plant-based diet can not only save your life, but it can save many, many lives. It can free you from the dangers of diabetes and heart disease and stroke issues and anything that's related that's causing problems from being heavier than what you ideally would want to be. So before I get into that, I just wanted to share with you, if you're interested, I have a free 21-day fitness challenge. All it really is you just sign up with email, and every day for 21 days, you will get a message from me encouraging you to transform and just be better. It doesn't mean you have to do anything extreme, but you can be better than what you were before. So it's all about progress. Does that make sense? I'm going to do a volume check. Volume check. Okay, got that working. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to start the video right here, and I'm hoping that the sound. Great. Having a volume issue. Try this. Volume issue.
You're killing yourself slowly, day after day after day. And we don't have to do that. And once you break a habit, you break a habit. So I'm going to ask a question I often ask at lectures I give. How many of the people here right now are in relationships? Raise your hands, please. Good, just about everybody. Now, how many of you are in relationship with the very first person you fell in love with? Nobody. Well, okay, we got one lucky lady back there. All right, you get the gold star. But most of us fell in love with someone once, thought we couldn't live unless we were breathing in the air that person exhaled, and then that person did something stupid. And we're like, why am I with this fool? And we kick them to the curb, and we learn to love someone else, and we probably love them better than we love the idiot. Well, just like you did that with that person, you can do it with your diet. Once you come to love a diet that is good for you and healthy for you, trust me, nothing's better. You have not seen addiction until you try to take a piece of chicken from somebody. But when you start talking about diet, one of the things that people often think about is, yeah, doc, but I know that feeling because when I first became aware of how important it was to change our diet to one that is more appropriate for our physiology, I had the same feeling. I'm like, I can't live without a hamburger. You know, I really like fried chicken. Basically, God told me, look, you need to get off that stuff, especially if you want to have a better relationship with me. And at that point, I really didn't have much of a choice. Well, I had a choice, but from my standpoint, if the choice is between, a piece of food and having a better relationship with God, that isn't a choice. I mean, I always want to have a better relationship with God. And then once I did change my diet, I immediately started feeling better. I had more energy. My mind was clearer. I stopped getting colds. Acne cleared up. I was a teenager. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this really is the truth. And it really does work. And so I decided I'm going to dedicate my life to helping people understand just how important it is for us to change our diet. And everything I've learned since then has simply added to that knowledge base and the conviction of helping people to understand just how powerful diet change is. And the other thing that I discovered after I changed my diet was that that feeling I had that I couldn't live without something, it was an addiction. When we think about addiction, we always want to talk about alcoholics or heroin addicts or people who smoke crack, but you have not seen addiction until you try to take a piece of chicken from somebody. Okay? Those people will cut you. Once I actually stopped eating dead flesh, not only did I no longer desire it, it actually began to see what it smelled like. And it smells like exactly what it is, dead rotting tissue. And I became horrified that I spent 16 years of my life making my body a graveyard. I see people all the time in the hospital and they're like, why did this happen to me? Why am I getting sick? Because you are putting rotting tissue in your body. You are eating death. You're killing yourself slowly, day after day after day. And we don't have to do that. And once you break a habit, you break a habit. So I'm going to ask a question I often ask at lectures I give. How many of the people here right now are in relationships? Raise your hands, please. Good. Just about everybody. Now, how many of you are in relationship with the very first person you fell in love with? Nobody. Well, okay, we got one lucky lady back there. All right, you get the gold star. But most of us fell in love with someone once, thought we couldn't live unless we were breathing in the air that person exhaled, and then that person did something stupid. And we're like, why am I with this fool? And we kick them to the curb and we learn to love someone else, and we probably love them better than we love the idiot. Well, just like you did that with that person, you can do it with your diet. Once you come to love a diet that is good for you and healthy for you, trust me, nothing's better. Because that when you sit down to eat, you know that you are building up your body. You are affirming your life. You're improving your health, and you're actually helping the planet. And then most importantly, you're not visiting unnecessary pain and suffering on other innocent creatures. I actually like to start with two passages from the book of Isaiah. They're prophecies about the Messiah, but I feel like this is my commission from God too. The first is from Isaiah 52, verse 7. It says, how beautiful on the mountain are the feet of him that bringeth good tidings and publisheth peace, that bringeth tidings of good. And then there's 61, verse 1. The Spirit of the Lord God is upon me because the Lord has anointed me to preach good tidings to the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and the opening of prison to those who are bound. And I'm going to tell you about 4 people whose lives were dramatically changed by changing their diet. And you'll see why I love these scriptures, because when people do embrace that diet, it's like they are released from prison. Their eyes are opened, literally, and they receive their health and their life back. And so we're going to start off with a quote from Dr. Mark Hyman. And he said, food is the most powerful drug on the planet. It can improve the expression of thousands of our genes, balance dozens of hormones, optimize tens of thousands of protein networks, reduce inflammation, and optimize your microbiome, your gut flora, with every single bite. It can cure most chronic diseases and prevent them from developing in the first place, I might add. It works faster, better, and cheaper than any drug ever discovered, and the only side effects are good ones: prevention, reversal, and even treatment of the disease, not to mention vibrant health, good skin, fewer wrinkles, and it makes you age backwards. I mean, it's just a win, 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 win. When we do what we are designed to do, it is just amazing what will happen to our health and to our physiology. So I want to start off by talking about a beautiful person by the name of Kathy Vess. I met Kathy back in the mid-90s when I was working in a free clinic in Alexandria. Kathy had really severe diabetes. She had had diabetes by the time we began interacting for 17 years. And it had caused her to become completely disabled because she had blockages in her legs that were so severe she couldn't walk for a block without getting cramping and pain that forced her to sit down. She told me that when she got up in the morning and opened her eyes, she'd have to sit on the side of her bed for at least 20 minutes to half an hour in order for her vision to clear enough for her to get up and start trying to get dressed and take care of herself. She had severe heart disease. And despite taking combination insulin shots twice a day and oral pills, her blood sugar still averaged in the 250 to 300 range. And she felt terrible. And so I sat her down and I said, well, Kathy, you know, type 2 diabetes is related to the way most Americans eat. It's caused by an animal food centered diet. And I actually started talking to her about changing her diet in the hopes that I could ease her into becoming a vegetarian and then ease her into becoming vegan. Well, Kathy kind of said, in a way, get out of my way, Dr. Mills, because she decided to become vegan overnight. And literally, over the next 8 to 12 weeks, I had to take her off of every single diabetic medicine she was on. She came off of 2 of the 3 blood pressure medications she was on. And over a period of 6 months, she lost 65 pounds without even trying. The blockages in her legs cleared up to the point where she was able to go out and walk a mile, and she was able to go back to work. This was a woman who had been disabled and sick and thinking that she was going to die, and suddenly she had her life back. And Kathy was so thrilled and so grateful. We actually went to the same church, by the way, and she would accompany me sometimes on lectures that I gave in the DC metro area just to tell her story because it was so amazing. But this is what can happen when a person adopts the diet our bodies are designed to eat. The disease will reverse. You will get your health and your life back. Next person I'm going to talk about is a gentleman that I see in the clinic where I work right now. Right now, I am the medical director for 2 federal agencies. I'm the medical director for the health clinic at the Nuclear Regulatory Commission in Rockville, Maryland. And I'm also the medical director for the United States Census Bureau. You might say, wait a minute, how can you be the medical director of 2 separate agencies? Well, without giving you the full backstory, during the last administration, they were actively attempting to close down the Census Bureau until somebody reminded them that the Census Bureau is created by the Constitution and they can't get rid of it completely. As part of that, they reduced the hours of the medical director for the health unit at the Census Bureau from 40 hours a week to 8 hours a week, 1 day a week. So I work at Census 1 day a week, and the other 4 days I'm at Nuclear Regulatory Commission. But again, as with all patients that I see, I talk to them about the importance of adopting a plant-based diet. And I saw a gentleman there. I'll just use his first name. His name was John. And this was a man who had been struggling with hyperlipidemia, prediabetes, and kidney stones all of his adult life. He was on a number of medications to lower his triglycerides, to lower his cholesterol, to treat the kidney stones. And he had just recently had a bout of kidney stones for which he had seen his nephrologist. And he came in for his evaluation, again, talked to him about the importance of adopting a different diet. And he said, you know what? I'm willing to try that. Well, John came back, saw him in April. He came back last month, and he brought in this spreadsheet of how his numbers have changed since he went plant-based. His triglycerides, which have been running in the 200 range, are now normal. His cholesterol had dropped by almost 100 points. No more problems with kidney stones. He's lost weight. He feels energetic. Again, once again, complete turnaround in his health. And he said to me, he said, Dr. Mills, I've been on these medicines for years, and they never did anything close to this for me. And so once again, you see the return of health, the banishment of disease by adopting a plant-based diet. Now I want to tell you about Frank Smith. Frank Smith was a gentleman who had a history of IV drug use. He's very open about that. And as a result, Frank had contracted hepatitis C. And over, several years, the hepatitis C caused him that, and he also admits some drinking and other issues that caused him to develop severe cirrhosis of the liver. And ultimately, that cirrhosis turned into hepatocellular carcinoma. He had liver cancer. He went to Lombardi Center at Georgetown, and they showed him that he had 2 large tumors in each lobe of his liver. This is in 2013. And they told Frank, they said, look, this is terminal. You've probably got about 6 months. You need to kind of get your affairs in order because you're not going to be here very much longer. Frank realized that he needed to make a huge change in his life. So he went to see a colleague of mine, Dr. Theodore Watkins, who's a vegan physician. Dr. Watkins put him on a strict raw vegan diet. And over the next 8 months, those liver tumors completely regressed. But the story doesn't stop there. And this is the amazing part. After the liver cancer was healed, Frank took Harvoni, which is a medication to treat the hepatitis C, and that did clear hepatitis C, but he still had cirrhosis. Well, over the next year and a half, his cirrhosis reversed just from being plant-based. And that is unheard of. So again, once again, when we eat the right food, our bodies can heal themselves. And then the last person I want to tell you guys about is a woman by the name of Donna Green Goodman. Back in 1996, Donna, who had been vegetarian all her life, meaning that she didn't eat meat, but she still used dairy and eggs, noticed a lump in her left breast. She went to get it checked out, and it was biopsied, and it was cancer. And they removed what she said was a pecan-sized tumor and did a lymph node dissection, and she had 7 out of 11 lymph nodes that were positive for cancer. I'm assuming most of you guys are non-medical and you don't really understand what that means. What that means is that she had stage 3 breast cancer. Stage 3 breast cancer is a death sentence for a woman. Women are told when they are diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer is that we will put you on chemotherapy, suppressive therapy, adjuvant, radiation therapy, and we can put the disease at bay for probably 5 years or so. But then it's going to come back. And when it comes back, it's not going to respond to anything, and it's going to kill you. Donna, obviously, she had a young child, and she was a fairly young woman. She didn't want to accept that. She went to see 2 other oncologists, and they told her the same thing. So she, once again, prayed about it and felt that God was telling her, you need to become completely vegan. So she not only eliminated all dairy, all eggs, Donna said she also eliminated chocolate and caffeine. And over the next, again, 7 months, all of her tumor markers went to 0. Now, as I said, stage 3 breast cancer, anticipated survival of 3 to 5 years. This was 1996. Donna is still alive and well and teaching classes. And that is absolutely incredible. I want you guys to understand that plant-based diets are incredibly powerful, and they can treat and reverse disease. Now, since we're talking about breast cancer, I want to mention something that people get really confused about. Because when I talk to people about their diet, one of the first things they say, well, you can't eat all this, it's got all the estrogens in it. I'm just like, OMG. Okay. Number one, they're phytoestrogens, meaning they're plant estrogen-like compounds. It's not estrogen. But you know what? That milk, that yogurt, that ice cream, that cheese you're eating, that's got real estrogen in it. That's got mammalian estrogen in it. That's the stuff that will kill you. That's the stuff that raises your risk for prostate cancer, breast cancer, and other forms of hormone-related cancer, not the phytoestrogens. Study after study after study after study has shown that the phytoestrogens in soy protect women against breast cancer both before and after menopause, before and after diagnosis. And you say, well, wait a minute, how can that be? It's because the plant estrogens will bind to estrogen receptor 1, but they don't activate it. So they actually lower total estrogenic activity and thereby reduce a woman's risk for developing breast cancer in the first place or having a recurrence. And the largest sort of natural experiment in the world that proves that this is true, look at China and Japan. They've been eating soy for centuries. They have lower risk of breast cancer, lower risk of prostate cancer, and oh, by the way, the men are not wearing bras, okay? All of the studies support and show that soy is healthy and protective. Let me say, not only should you have no problem eating it, I would encourage you to include it in your diet. There is some information, misinformation out on the web about soy. A lot of that has been put out by the beef industry because the meat analogs are cutting into their business and they're trying to scare people away from using soy-based products. But they are healthy, and you can feel very comfortable that they will help protect your health and help you live a long and healthy life. And again, that's true for both women with breast cancer and men with prostate cancer. I also want to mention the importance of utilizing cruciferous vegetables and mushrooms Well, actually, before that, let me talk about beans a little bit because when I was in medical school, and one of my medical school classmates found out I was plant-based. He's like, "Oh man, beans, that's depression food. I ain't eating no beans." I'm like, "Yeah, okay." Well, you know what research shows? It shows that the longest-lived populations around the world are those that include beans in their diet on a regular basis. So I'm gonna ask you guys to do a thought experiment with me. I want you to think of the nastiest, vilest, grossest combination of material that you can think of. So let's start with some fresh manure. So we're gonna got a bucket. We're gonna put some fresh manure in there, right? We can get some dirt and mix it in with the fresh manure. And then I'm gonna have somebody who's been drinking come and vomit in that bucket. And then lastly, I'll have somebody else relieve themselves in that bucket, stir it all up. Who would be willing to put their hand in there? Nobody? Well, what would happen if you put a bean in that bucket? In a couple of days, you're going to have a beautiful, healthy, pristine plant that will go on to produce a ton of food. That's how powerful beans are. They have incredible compounds in them that fight disease, ward off cancer, and that boost our immune function. And that's why you should be eating beans at least 3 times a week. And the greater the variety, the better for you. Because just like we should be learning that diversity in our society helps make us stronger, so does diversity in our diet. Mushrooms are incredibly potent for stimulating and regulating our immune system, helping it respond appropriately but not over respond. They also help prevent inappropriate clotting in our bloodstream. It turns out that cruciferous vegetables are also really important for cancer suppression and immune boosting. And what are your cruciferous vegetables? All right, somebody yell out some names of cruciferous vegetables. Broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, kale, bok choy, turnips, chard. Yes, cruciferous vegetables are really amazing because they contain these compounds that are directly cancer suppressive, but they also interact with a receptor in our digestive tract that actually turbocharges our immune cells and make them much more active, much more potent in fighting disease. So you need to be including cruciferous vegetables in your diet all the time, okay? Now, if I say allium vegetables, what am I talking about? Onions, yes, and what else? Garlic, leeks, green onions. Yes, allium vegetables are also incredibly potent in terms of suppressing cancer. And I have a little chart up here that says the same garlic dose that will block 80% of cancer cell proliferation had no effect on the proliferation of normal cells. And that's why, again, we need to include as these allium vegetables, cruciferous vegetables in our diet as often as we can every day. If they tell you that you should use, 2 or 3 cloves of garlic, triple it, okay? Because it will benefit you to no end. I'm going to close by reading this little passage from one of my lectures. It says, why does green calm? Why do we look at flowers or an expanse of lush, verdant foliage and pronounce them beautiful with the warm, contented thrill of someone who feels safe and at home? Perhaps it is because our minds know what our creative cultures have forgotten, that we are creatures of the plants. Our genetic history is entwined with theirs. They beckon us with their siren song of color and fragrance. It is a song made irrepressible and irresistible by our genes, which resonate to the refrain. It is as though our genes recognize in their various colors and myriad scents offerings of support, sustenance, and safekeeping. Our innate love of flowers and other flowering plants tells us that if we want to live a healthy life on a planet that can sustain us and the Earth's other inhabitants, then a plant-based diet will be seen as both our heritage and our destiny. Thank you guys for your attention.